Kate Woodthorpe from Social and Policy Sciences, as well as the Centre for Death and Society, and you'll talk about why should we care about dying. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello. The theme today isn't going to be Easter related at all. You'll be thrilled to know. But what I'm going to talk to you about is why should we care about dying. People often say to me, "Oh, you're Dr. Death. Oh, you're weird. Why do we care about death?" And there are loads of reasons. I'm going to bombard you with stats to begin with of why we should be caring about it. 17% of the population are currently aged over 65. That's projected to go to 23% in the next 20 years. 500,000 people die every year. 555,232 million people. Oh my God. So it's estimated that we need a lot of money to spend on palliative care services. 55% of deaths take place in hospital, and £1.3 billion are spent on the adult population in the last year of their life. If we are going to support that number of people who are going to be dying, we need to have 90,000 extra beds a year in hospitals. We've also got 30% of people using local authority services, which cost about £1.49 billion a year in the last year of their life. We've also got the hidden costs that aren't really covered in this. We've got 85% of older people are cared for with informal carers in their own home. It's estimated there are about 7 million people doing that in the UK, and it saves the economy about 119 billion a year. There's a lot of work that's going on that's underrepresented. So I'm a member of CDAS. This is what we do in social policy sciences. We look at social networks, budgeting, bereavement, innovation, and what I'm going to talk today about is funeral costs. This is what I've been doing for the last year or so now, looking at why do we have funerals. Well, we have them because they're rituals, they are a way of bringing people together, they're restorative in terms of communities, and they're a public acknowledgement of why someone has died. But very little has been done about actually how much they cost in terms of there being a service that you buy from a funeral director. So how big is the funeral market in the UK? It's estimated to be worth about 2.8 billion a year. Funeral costs are rising. There are about 25,000 practicing funeral directors in the UK, 3 trade bodies, and it's not regulated at all. There is no regulation of funeral directors in this country. The average funeral costs over £3,000, and that typically includes burial and cremation, doctor's fees, minister's fees, and funeral director services. So that is the £3,000 fee. On top of that, you can have flowers, catering, order sheets, limos, venue hire, memorials. And if you include estate administration, so that's managing people's assets when they've died, you're looking at the average cost is about £7,000 for every individual who dies in this country. How do people pay for funerals? They pay for them up front, they pay them on credit cards, they pay for them by loans, funeral plans, insurance and charities. This is what we've been looking at this year in terms of actually what happens to people who are at the bottom of the lower income, of the income scale, who can't afford £3,000 up front. Research has shown that about almost a fifth of all people struggle with funeral costs, and 1 in 10 deaths result in a claim to the government for help with funeral costs, and that's through the social fund funeral payment, which is administered by the DWP. They deal with state security. And this is what we were looking at. We were looking at the funeral payment. So it's about the policy and the people involved. So how do people actually claim for that benefit? How those benefit claims are assessed? And also you should know that the funeral payment is capped at £700, so it's not enough anyway. There were 69,000 claims last year. Only just over half of them were successful. So over half of people who apply for it don't get anything. The average award is £1,200, again, less than half of what is needed, and it costs the DWP about £50 million. So what we found, obviously, there's a shortfall. Funeral costs are not, the government isn't providing enough money for funerals. Is it the government's responsibility anyway? That's one of the questions, but basically people are getting into debt to pay for funerals because they want to do the right thing, a lot of them. There is a backward process to claiming. People have to actually commit to funeral costs before they put their claim in for the government for help. So, and if you remember, almost half of people are unsuccessful in their claims, so they're committing themselves to all these costs without knowing how much money they've got to spend. And family. The government assumes that families get on. The government assumes that they can identify who's responsible for funeral costs and that that person will willingly step up and pay for it. We found no, that does not happen. People do not want to step up for each other because families are not that congenial all the time. What might this mean? Is that funerals are a really good way of looking at families, family patterns. They're an overlooked expenditure, and with limited means, it means debt for a lot of people. And bearing in mind, ageing population, this is going to happen more and more and more for more people. So questions to ponder at the end are what could we be doing to encourage people to plan ahead for their personal and financial care, at least with funeral costs. We all know we're going to die. We're all going to know that we're going to have a funeral. And the question I'm going to leave with you today is, Have you thought about how you're going to pay for your own funeral, or at least tell the person who you were expecting to step up and take responsibility for your funeral costs? Did they know they've got it coming? And that's it. Thank you very much.